free. Just walk right in, or not debt free, but like she probably still had to pay, but she was able to just get right in. And when obviously so many Americans have to work their asses off, and pay so much in test prep, pay, like that is this is the person, this is the face of the college admissions scandal. And oh yes, she has a YouTube channel.
School I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school.
And again, she says, I can back that up for you. I'm going to talk to the dean, because I don't know how much school I can attend, of course. And again, after she gets into school for free, easy free ride right into school, she's like, oh yeah, I don't know how much school I'm going to attend. Like, I'm going to talk to the dean, figure it out. I don't really care about school. I'm really more for the parties. Like, are you kidding? Like, this is a huge scenario for so many Americans. They work their asses off for it and are paying so much still in student debt today. It's a huge issue for most people in this America, because they're putting their kids through it, they're dealing with the effects of it, or they're about to go through it. Like, that's the reality for so many Americans. And this is what rich and power looks like in this country. That's something that we found out, I think, clearer than ever in 2019.
A group of teenagers, some Catholic high school students, seen wearing Make America Great Again hats, appearing to face off with Nathan Phillips, a 65-year-old Native American, as he pounds his drum near the Lincoln Memorial during an Indigenous Peoples March.
This was during the abortion rally conflicting with this Indigenous Peoples March, and this really was a galvanizing moment for, I think, a lot of people, because it kind of played in the same annoyance of elites and powerful people, because, and it's not necessarily that, it's more pretty much a liberal versus conservative media versus, or mainstream media versus like Fox News conservative media type of thing. But I think it did contribute to a lot of people's real distrust and dislike of the media because of this. If you don't remember what happened, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably, it's out of your mind, but it's still filtering back to you as I speak. But there was the Covington Catholic high school kid, Nick Sandman, was kind of like smiling uncomfortably or awkwardly or offensively, whatever, about this kid. And it appears that once a full clip was released, he was just kind of like, there was no confrontation. There was no yelling, there was no shouting, there was no insults being thrown. It was just kind of them running up into each other, and Nathan Phillips kind of preaching a song for, Nathan Phillips singing a song for love, and them kind of really not knowing what to do with it was my kind of perception of what went down there. But again, the fact that the media, I think the biggest part of the story is the media's reaction to it, and the people being like, this kid is the next Christopher Columbus slaughtering Native Americans here. Because a lot of people are like that. A lot of people kind of got, a lot of people got really hit for that. So this was the reality, and another big tick, I guess you could say, in many people's minds against the media. A big strike against them for this Nick Sandman incident. As spring turned to summer and the summer raged on, we found out that vaping was deadly. We held a vigil for a Paris church, and the Democratic governor of Virginia survived a blackface scandal. Speaking of Democrats, they are running, folks, in record numbers. They all set out to beat Donald Trump at the field, reaching numbers as high as over 20 people. Crazy stuff as the fight for the new face of the left wing of America, pretty much is really what it's all about, began to take shape. With Elizabeth Warren announcing days before the beginning of 2019, and obviously people announcing in the months and weeks and days after that. But of course they were not going to have a cakewalk by any means necessary to the nomination.
I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States.
Then, finally, in the beginning of the fall, something crazy happened, and something I really never thought would happen. The seemingly endless Mueller report, that investigation finally came to a head with William Barr writing up a 4-page summary of it before the full Mueller report was released. And here is how it was covered by the news media.
Robert Mueller's report to Congress in the form of a 4-page letter
outlining the so-called principal conclusions of Mueller's report.
The 4-page letter reads, the special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it
conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
There was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
But Mueller did not draw a conclusion one way or the other about whether President Trump obstructed justice. His report, quote,
does not conclude that the president committed a crime. It also does not exonerate him.
While it really wasn't a...
It was a complete and total exoneration.
It really wasn't a complete and total exoneration for President Trump. The fact was, it wasn't really what the Democrats wanted either. It was something that really kind of gave the sense to a lot of people that they were just wasting their time pursuing this for years and years and years and making such a big deal out of it. I mean, the main reason why they, I think, won the House in 2018 and were able to have those strong fighters in office fighting for them, such as Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Omar Presley, etc., and a bunch of other people who won their races all across the country, is because they did not talk about the Russia issue. They did not talk about collusion, and this was probably the smarter move. And people who did stake their careers off it and grift off it, they really were, in the end, quite disappointed. Robert Mueller testified, the full report was released, it was broken down, it was analyzed, and seemingly just like that, the Mueller report, while many Republicans thought it was a complete and total exoneration, probably still do to this day, the truth is it's obviously, as just explained, it's somewhere in between. It didn't really draw a conclusion on obstruction of justice and didn't completely exonerate the president of any collusion or conspiracy to rig the election with Russia. It was not a complete total exoneration. It was not nearly, though, a win for the Democrats. And by that margin, the Republicans were really effectively, I think, able to spin it off as a win for them, even though there was plenty of damaging stuff in the Robert Mueller report, really in part because the Democrats had set their sights so high, and a lot of people in the media, a lot of people had been talking about the P-tape, how it was absolutely obvious that Trump conspired with the Russians, and with so many media coverage of Trump in front of the Kremlin being best friends with Putin. And when that was proven by Mueller, a guy who they'd really set all their stocks in from being so far from the truth, it was really a letdown for a lot of people, and another tick or another strike on how a lot of the country viewed the media, if that strike had not been put in place already by the media's rather ridiculous coverage of the Mueller report leading up to its actual release. Like, we were able to tell this thing wasn't all it was cracked up to be, even before it was released. Some of us, anyway. But, yeah. So that happened. Oh, and Nancy Pelosi still was wait and see on that impeachment thing. The Democratic nomination fight was in full swing this summer, with, at the debates, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, the progressive wing of the party, going full swing against the army of moderate candidates, from Joe Biden all the way down to people like Michael Bennet and John Delaney, who were desperate to quash all ideas of Medicare for all, free college, or anything like that. And boy, did they have some pretty fire responses.
I understand why anybody goes to all the trouble of running for president of the United States just to talk about what we really can't do and shouldn't fight for.
So, Mr. President, if you're listening, I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field.
Oh, yeah. And we met Marianne. Probably like, one of our best flings of the summer, who, by the way, as of Christmas, is still running. She was one of our flings of the summer. We also met someone who probably became a little bit more than a fling of the summer, Andrew Yang, running on his nerdy platform of universal basic income and making America think harder again, or math for short, charmed our hearts on the internet with memes and really kind of UBIing his way to December, where he still was in the debate just a few weeks ago. The mid-December debate, yes, he was in there. So, here's to surprise in 2019, I guess. The protests against the elite and against power started in Europe and continued in 2019 in Hong Kong, where 2 million people plus took to the streets, mostly young people and students, to protest their Beijing-backed leader, Carrie Lam, for her very controversial not Vietnam, but her extradition law that would send suspected criminals to China right away without any trial. This is a big, big fight, not just against the established power and the way of being, but for freedoms, for civil liberties that are so important to these Hong Kong people, and something that China represents a complete and total lack of. Like, that was something that was a huge part and a huge dynamic in these protests, and why so many in the media and so many people really around the world were inspired by this protest and what it had to offer. Whatever ends up happening with Hong Kong, and by the way, that still is a very open conflict right now. China's definitely not going to be able to give up Hong Kong without a fight. It certainly was one for the ages. Also, what happened this year is something that really no one ever thought would happen under the Trump administration. A photo op of the demilitarized zone with Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. Something that really seemed like it was improbable just months and months ago in the Trump administration, with the really roller coaster relations that the United States and North Korea have had, with possible negotiations and then a nuclear test by North Korea. Insults thrown, the word dotard used, and we're back at square one. So this meeting did happen this year, but right now North Korea and American relations have really never been frostier. We were threatened with anyway. It's still, the jury's still out. We still do have a little bit, as this is being recorded, we still do have a little bit more to go in Christmas, but we were threatened with a Christmas gift from North Korea just recently. So, yeah, again, the jury is very much still out on that. One thing the jury is definitely not out on in 2019, the jury has come back on this issue. President Donald Trump is a racist.
President Trump has sparked a storm of outrage after a series of racist tweets targeting members of Congress who are women of color.
The president Sunday called out progressive Democrat congresswomen.
Quote, so interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they have a functioning government at all.
Now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came?
They came from here.
This is our country, and no amount of hate-filled bullying from the White House is going to change that. We're going to fight back together, and we're going to become stronger for it.
I mean, I look at Omar, I don't know, I never met her. I hear the way she talks about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans. She said you can hold your chest out. You can, when I think of America, when I think of Al-Qaeda.
The unhinged rambling coming from the White House along the lines of, if you don't love your country, you have to leave it, you can't possibly make it better, was a big, unfortunately, all too big theme in 2019, especially the latter half, with people the late Elijah Cummings being told by Donald Trump to go back to his rat